Okay, for this one, we're going to be looking at the number 2, and we're going to figure out how the number 2 fits into art. It can fit into art, obviously, in many, many different ways, but we're going to look at the diptych. Okay, what? The diptych? You pronounce it, it's just like dip and tick. Diptych. The diptych is the definition of a diptych is 2 artworks that are shown together next to each other. And the diptych originated with this idea of religious art that could travel. So essentially you could have a artwork that could tell a story, and it was hinged. You see the hinges right here in this one. It was hinged, and you can close the story. It could be a very large artwork that could travel, and it can go from church to church and be able to tell a story. This is one of the first times that art was able to be mobile and to travel. Canvas painting wasn't very popular just yet, so painting them on panels and being able to transport them. So artists had to start thinking in twos, something that is nice and compact and can be traveled. So you have to think about your story and how the 2 images relate to each other. So let's look at some examples. This is a Jan van Eyck example. As you can see, there's a hinge here, and it's telling 2 stories from the Bible. This one we're going to be looking at, this is actually the outside of a diptych, and you can see that the artist has even created this illusion that is going back into space. You can see the shadows, so it almost looks sculptural in this. And then the inside of it, you can see, so here's the outside. The inside of it is going to have 2 portraits here. And notice how in this diptych that the eyes of this person is going inward and the eyes are going this way too. If they're both looking outward, it wouldn't really make sense with the diptych. Okay, so you have to make sure when you're making your composition for a diptych that they're both speaking to each other in some kind of way. They have to make sense visually. They have to bring your eyes in rather than out, unless you're doing it for some conceptual reason on why the gaze should be looking out. All right, so here's another example. One reason I wanted to bring this up is, as you can see, that this is a portrait of 2 married people. Very formal portrait. Very fun, very profile. And the point I like about this is that the landscape continues through the picture, even though they're 2 different paintings. So something you can think about with your diptych that you're eventually going to do is, do you want the images to connect in some kind of way, or do you want them to be 2 separate photographs that interact with each other? One of my favorite artists is Lorna Simpson. And I bring her up because she did several diptychs, and we're going to look at some of them, but this is one of her most famous artworks here. You can see there are 5 pictures of a woman crossing her arms, in particular, a Black woman crossing her arms. And every single picture is slightly different. You can tell that it's the same person, but it's slightly different. You can tell that there are 5 days of the week that are up here, which are the 5 work days of the week. And then you have a series of words underneath. So this is an artwork that has been mounted together as one body right here. And then plaques, like you get for plaques for awards, are actually adhered to the wall here. And this says misdescription, misinformation, misidentify, misdiagnose, misfunction, mistranscribe, misremember, misgauge, misconstrue, and mistranslate. So in this artwork, you can see that Lorna Simpson is talking about how 5 days out of the week, during the work week, all of these things are happening to Black women. Notice that there are no faces here, which makes it more anonymous, and so that we can put anybody's face onto here who's experiencing these things right here. So she's using a lot of symbolism and repetition in her work, and for emphasis, right? The repetition creates emphasis. So something you want to keep in mind is that you could actually use text for your work as well. Okay, so we also have another diptych. The cool thing about this one, it looks like it's the exact same picture, except all she did was just flip the image. And if she's working with a negative, you can easily flip your negative and print it that way. And notice again, we have text here that's referring to it. And also she has data, which I think is pretty interesting too. So you could do some kind of research into your diptych. And it could be a political statement, or it could be a environmental statement. Whatever it is that you're interested in could be presented in this way. This one says, the neighbors were suspicious of her hairstyle. So in here, she did a diptych where it's a photograph of a woman with her head turned away from the viewer. And then we have a photograph of a sculpture, which is a mask. It looks like an African mask with a hairstyle like this. And so she is obviously talking about people who are suspicious of Black women's hairstyles and how they're discriminated against because of their hairstyles. Again, back of the head. And this one is a photograph. And then this one actually is a diptych where she has actually found this braid and glued it on or pinned it onto the actual board here. So it's a photographic work of art, but also including sculptural or found objects in her work. So this is something you're going to be able to do if you want to add sculptural elements, found object elements, anything like that. In the past one, she did a photograph of a mask, whereas this one, it looks like it's a actual object that she used. And then she added the text in the inside. So different ways you can approach the diptych. This is one that she is gaining fame for actually in recent history, because she what she did is she found these old appropriated imagery right here from old magazines like Ebony, and then she watercolored the hair. And she did this recently in Essence magazine with Rihanna. And so she's gained a lot of popularity with that. Even LeBron James just tweeted about Lorna Simpson about 2 weeks ago, and I was really excited about that. Also wanted to show you that you could do a diptych that is on top of each other like this. So a vertical diptych. These are two pictures of another mask, and then this is an image of a woman wearing a dress, and it's from like below the shoulder down to the knees here. And notice that there's text again there. I can't actually read that text in the image. Now this is not Lorna Simpson, but I wanted to show you that all diptychs don't have to be very serious. I mean, the subjects that she's touching on are very serious and very appropriate for what's going on in our culture. However, if you want to take a diptych in a different direction, you want to make it more playful, you're welcome to do that by making connections to objects that maybe seem silly or fun. Like this looks like the foot pedals of a piano, and this looks like just some high heel shoes. And notice the composition. There's a lot of negative space here, and then there's negative space here. So it's balancing each other out. And we're going to start thinking about like word pairings. And this is visually really nice. You can see that it lines up right here with the shoe. Okay, we have the shoe box and then we have the shoes, but we also have them tied together, and this is concealed. So two word pairs you could think of when you're thinking of this is concealed and confined. Like, what are two word pairs for the diptych to describe the two? Just like husband, wife, man, woman. Okay, so there's a lot of different ways you can think about how these two images fit together and the words that you could use for it. So we're going to start thinking about what we can represent in twos. So what I've done is I found 5 artworks here that in class we analyzed, and I'm just going to go through the images. The first one is a Papaletti Wreath. And let me go ahead and turn it to presentation view. Okay, Papaletti Wreath, and her images. One of her most famous bodies of work is where she did 2 videos in the side of a gallery. You can see that actually the gallery is at an angle here. So you've got a video imagery over here overlaid with a video imagery here, and these two are playing at the same time. So if you look this up on YouTube, you'll be able to find this video. And what it is a woman wearing a blue dress, carrying a large flower, and the flower that is indicated over here. And it's really heavy. And she is walking down the street, smashing car windows, and just smiling. And it's all in slow motion, and you can hear the crashing. And at one scene, this female officer walks by her and just tips her hat and smiles to her. So lets her keep smashing the windows. So you've got two images here. You've got the flower nature images, and then you got the woman smashing the cars. Okay, so let's look at the next artist. This one is called the Birmingham Project by Dawood Bey. And in this project, he was looking at the people who died during a attack at a church in Birmingham. And there were 4 girls that had passed away. And what he did was take a girl of the same age as the one who was killed, and then did a photograph of maybe what she would have looked like if she were alive today. So it's so this is a diptych, and it's created because obviously the girls are not alive, but it is showing a what if scenario. And so the diptych, notice how the chairs are facing outward, but the eyes are facing forward. And notice how he's connecting the background right here visually and using the black and white. Same thing here with Rena Dijkstra. Two images of people, both the eyes looking straight out at the camera. This is the same person. This is before going into the military, and this is during the military. And then Carrie Mae Weems over here. We have all the boys from 2016, and you can see that there is an out of focus picture of what looks like a black male or female. And then you have a red block that's covering the nose, mouth, and chin. And then you have a booking sheet, which says Sandra Blonde on it. So if you all know that case, you would know that this is about violent police brutality and excessive use of force on Black women or Black men. And you can see this red block is not covering the eyes, but is covering the mouth. And also you can see that the use of red. So it's got a blue in the background and red here. So what would you think that the red symbolizes in this? And then here we have Gillian Waring, Me as Madame and Monsieur Duchamp from 2018. It's a diptych using the traditional hinge. And you have Gillian Waring, which she really enjoys dressing up and role-playing in her images. And she's using this, it almost looks like a locket, to dress herself up as both a male and female of a married couple. So that's one interpretation you can take as well. Okay, so what are we going to do for this project? We are going to look at samples of what students have done in the past to get us kind of thinking about it. So this one is a very conceptual piece. I've shown you artwork where you use the same picture in both images, just like the one with Lorna Simpson, where you just flip it over. But this one is called Half Empty and Half Full, and it is the exact same picture. So it's very conceptual. Of course, I don't want you to do what you're seeing here because this is the student who did this. It was his idea. But I wanted to show you that the work doesn't have to be super complicated visually. It could be completely conceptual. So you are going to label each one with kind of the word pairing, half empty, half full. And then you're going to give a quick description under here of your project. A diptych features 2 parts which relate to each other in some capacity. One concept expressed in one way cannot be a diptych. However, sometimes the same concept can mean different things to different people. I chose to make a diptych which utilized only one photo to express the idea. The glass could be either half empty or half full, depending on how you view it, but neither answer can account for everyone. Okay, let's look at another artist. This one is called Moonlight Spotlights. And the photographer here used, this one is called Moonlight and this one is called Spotlight. So two visually similar images. My only critique is I wish that this diptych was exactly the same size as this picture. I think he used two different cameras and that's why it looks like that. But ideally it would be nice if they were the same. And then his connection is down here. The diptych revolves around the theme of light and of connection or lack thereof. And then he goes on to explain the symbolism here. So let's take a look at another one. This one's really interesting. It's called The Father Figure, and it's just two simple images, present and absent. So it's pretty clear on what this body of work is about. This one here is from a foreign exchange student from Germany, and it's called Homesick. And it's far away from and home. And notice she did caption them. She said, I've gotten into a weird spot in my exchange year. I feel both homesick and at home at the same time. So she tried to put this conflict into her photograph. So you see she's using text, and she's using editing, and she vignetted her pictures really nicely and chose the same colors from the picture. So you can see that the red that she's choosing here is very similar to the colors here. The blue is very similar here. So notice that she's really making this diptych work for her stylistically, not just conceptually. And let's look at one more. This one's really interesting because it's kind of very more literal, but it's a photograph of a birthmark right here and here of two different people. It's called Acceptance and Denial. Two similar birthmarks on two different people with two opposite perspectives. So somebody who accepts their birthmark and somebody who denies it or dislikes it. So that gives you some examples of what you're going to be doing. So your task is to create a diptych. It has to be photographic in some way, but it could be sculptural. You could paint on it. You could hinge it together if you wanted to, and then photograph. You could do anything you want as long as it's two ideas that are portrayed next to each other. And you're going to label each one with a caption on the word choices that you use, acceptance, denial, and then you're going to do a short description. Now, this person did a very short description, and then you've got somebody here who likes to really explain more. So it depends on how well you like to present your work or to talk about your work or how much you enjoy text. All right, good luck with your project.